Howard says to him, "Do I look like a homosexual to you?" And Bob Newhart says, "I don't know. Stand up and walk for me." What a horrible, ugh.
Have you ever had something you love dismissed because it's just pop culture? What others might deem stupid shit, you know matters. You know it's worth talking and thinking about. And so do we. So come overthink with us as we delve into our deep thoughts about stupid shit.
I'm Emily Guy Birkin, and you're listening to Deep Thoughts About Stupid Shit. Because pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head? On today's episode, I will be sharing my deep thoughts about the 1997 Kevin Kline film In and Out with my sister, Tracy Guy Decker. And with you. Let's dive in. So, Trace, I have no idea if you've seen this film, if you remember this film or anything. It's kind of one of those, forgettable 90s films. But it made a big impression on me. So tell me what you know about this film, if anything.
I don't know if I've seen it or not. What is in my head about it is Kevin Kline, which you already said, is gay and closeted, and someone else outs him, and then, or maybe he's even closeted to himself somehow. Yeah, that's it. That's all I got. Kevin Kline, closeted, outed by someone else. That's all I got. But you just named it as forgettable, but making an impression on you. So why are we talking about it today?
So a few weeks ago, we talked about Chasing Amy, which also came out, I believe, in 1997. And this film was the second one of that year. And I couldn't remember which one I saw first. I saw both of them in the theater, where someone makes a statement about their sexuality. And I went, wait, what? That's not what I thought was happening. In Chasing Amy, Alyssa, played by Joey Lauren Adams, makes it very clear that she is gay. She is a lesbian. She's not interested in men. And then she kisses Ben Affleck. And in this film, Kevin Kline spends probably the first 3/4 of the film telling everyone, I'm not gay. I don't know why he said that, until at his wedding to a woman, instead of saying I do, he says I'm gay. And I remember being in the theater going what movie am I watching? For me, revisiting this film was a little bit about going back into undiagnosed neurodivergence as a teenager, because I think that both of these films give me a really clear-eyed view of things that in retrospect are obvious about my understanding of subtext. But it's also a very interesting time capsule of greater acceptance and awareness of homosexuality in American media. But at the same time, it's really relying on some very ugly stereotypes. So there's a very sweet heart underneath of this film. But it's also I was watching it and my son came in. I was like, I really don't want you watching this film. Not that there's anything. He was saying oh, is it not appropriate? I was like, no, I need to talk to you about pretty much every single thing that happens in this film. And I don't have the time for it right now. So it's not that it's inappropriate. It's that it's really outdated. All of those are part of it. And then I did not know the story behind why this film came to be, nor did I realize that it was directed by Frank Oz. Miss Piggy.
Wait, what?
Miss Piggy directed this film.
Weird.
I know.
Is Oz gay?
No. Paul Rudnick, who wrote the screenplay, is.
Okay.
So that's basically what I want to bring to this, discussing this very weird film that does not have staying power, but that I think was in a lot of ways very influential because of the type of gay story it told.
And Kline was already a well-known.
Yes.
He was already A-list, yeah?
Yes. It's full of A-list stars. So Joan Cusack is in it, Debbie Reynolds, Wilford Brimley, Matt Dillon. And then there were a lot of young actors who went on to have pretty long, glowing careers who were in their early 20s or, even late teens, because Kline's character plays a school teacher. So it's his students. Bob Newhart's in it as well. I mean, there's the
Oh.
yeah. It's quite a list.
Hmm.
Oh, and Tom Selleck.
Oh.
Yes.
Is he the love interest?
He's not the love interest.
Okay.
So I'll kind of give you a little, like, the background of the film and then the plot of the film before we kind of jump into the analysis.
Okay.
So this I was completely unaware of until yesterday. Background, the reason why this film was written was because when Tom Hanks won the Oscar for Philadelphia, he thanked two people from his past, a teacher and a fellow student that he went to, I think, high school with, who were gay. And he named the teacher, and he said, two of the finest gay Americans I have ever known, or something along those lines, and said, like, this is for them. This Oscar's for them. And I will have to look it up. I don't know if it was Frank Oz who saw that, but someone was like, wouldn't it be interesting if someone did that and it wasn't the person they said, like, this gay person who influenced me wasn't out of the closet. So that's where the idea of the story came from. And they wanted to make it kind of a farce. So that's the background. So the story is set in a fictional small town called Greenleaf, Indiana. I think that it's important that it's set in Indiana. That's not something I remembered, but that was like an important aspect of it, considering this is 1997. 1997 was the year that Ellen DeGeneres had her character come out as gay on her sitcom, and then her sitcom was canceled. So it was very controversial at the time. Just talking about the fact that gay people exist was controversial. We meet Kevin Kline's Howard Brackett. He is a high school English teacher. He is engaged to another English teacher, Miss Emily Montgomery, who is played by Joan Cusack. They are getting married at the end of the week. We meet him talking to his current class of seniors because one of his former students has gone on to become an actor and is up for the Best Oscar Actor Award for his part in a film called Protect and Serve about a gay soldier in Vietnam. So we learn that Howard and Emily have been engaged for 3 years. We see everyone gathering in the town to watch. Cameron Drake is the former student, played by Matt Dillon, to see if he wins the Oscar. He does. We see a clip of the film, which is ridiculous, but also like horrifying because the character is expelled from the military dishonorably, gets a dishonorable discharge because he is gay, but their evidence is he has a signed VHS copy of Beaches, signed by Bette Midler. My God. There's more than that, but like there's a love letter and then there's something else. And then like there's the signed copy of Beaches. And like in the court-martial trial, or whatever you call it, he says, "You give that back." He's like stoic about everything else. He wins the award. In his acceptance speech, he says, like, I need to accept this on behalf of all of the gay Americans who are, not able to serve. But I also really want to make sure that I talk about someone who's very influential in my life. He taught me Shakespeare, Mr. Howard Brackett, my high school English teacher, and he's gay. And then there's silence all across Greenleaf, Indiana. So Howard's parents come over to his house. Howard is there with his fiance saying, like, I don't know why he said that. His parents come over and they say, look, you're our son. We would love you no matter who you are, what you are. If you're gay, straight, if you robbed a bank, if you killed someone, we will always love you. Except you have to get married because mom needs music, flowers, place cards. It's like an addiction. I need the wedding. We then learn that Emily doesn't live with Howard because Howard's parents give her a ride home. And then the next day, the slathering hordes of the media descend, including Peter Malloy, who is played by Tom Selleck without a mustache.
Wait, what?
Yeah, I know.
That comes off?
No. Yeah.
Okay. Rearranging mental furniture right now.
Howard is getting hounded by everyone. His principal asks him to please talk to the media because they're talking to everyone at the school. And the principal, played by Bob Newhart, is getting some complaints from parents at the allegation that Howard is gay. So things calm down most of the media departs except for Peter Malloy, as played by mustacheless Tom Selleck, because he is under pressure from his network. And so he wants to get kind of a deeper story more than just like, hey, let's get your comment. He is staying all week through the wedding. Howard goes to his bachelor party. At this point, he's like trying to reassert his masculinity. And so he goes to his bachelor party. All his friends and his brother have like set everything up. And he's like, all right, what kind of, XXX have you brought me? And like, we have the uncut edition of Funny Girl, because he really likes Barbra Streisand.
And that's supposed to be code for those of us watching that he is in fact gay?
I think so.
Okay.
What the movie does right, and is kind of great, all of these very like Midwestern guys are saying like, you had that little, film festival for us like last year, and we knew that you loved Barbra. And you know what? It was actually really fun. There's a lot of really good movies. Howard is like, no, that's not what I want. It's my bachelor party. And one guy says, oh, well, you know what? Yentl kind of sucked. And Howard's like, oh, how dare you? And like, the guy says, Barbra Streisand was too old for that role. And they get into a brawl. Oh my God, that's so weird. So Howard ends up going to a Catholic confessional, even though he himself is not Catholic, and basically is like, I don't know what to do. He confesses to the priest, although he's pretending that he's someone else. He's like, this friend of mine is going through this thing. He tells the priest that even though they've been engaged for 3 years, he and Emily have never had sex.
Oh.
The priest says, well, yeah, of course they think he's gay. Go have sex with the fiance. Like, he runs over to her apartment. We have learned that Emily is a little younger than Howard, actually quite a bit younger than Howard. And she had been much heavier, and she lost 75 pounds. She had talked earlier about doing Richard Simmons videos. So when he gets to her apartment, she's working out to a Richard Simmons video, and he's like, kind of taking her into bed. She's delighted. But then he looks over and she had just muted Richard Simmons so he can see it. And he freaks out. He's just like, gotta turn that off. And so they don't end up consummating the relationship, and he runs off again. And again, Emily reassures him, like, I love you. I'm not worried about this. We're getting married. Like, this is, you're Howard. I'm Emily. We're good. Still freaking out. He's riding his bike and he goes through an intersection and is nearly run over by Peter Malloy, Tom Selleck, who like gets out and is trying to calm him down. Malloy tells him, like, I came out. It was tough, but it was the best thing I ever did. He says the one line that I think held up over the past 30 years, which is like, he says, I told my mom, my dad, my dog, my boss, I said, Mom, Dad, Sparky, I'm gay. Mom cried for about 10 seconds. My dad said, but you're so tall. And then Peter Malloy kisses Howard. This is one of the reasons why I'm like a little uncomfortable with this film. He kisses him. He says, you know what you need? And then he grabs him and kisses him. Now, to the film's credit, it is a 12-second full-on kiss. It is played for laughs, but it is also made clear that Howard is enjoying it, which is gross because it's non-consensual.
Right.
It's like, if only that it had been like, I'm going to kiss you. Tell me if you don't want me to. Like, if they'd done that. Anyway, still freaking out. Howard goes home and he has like this brown paper package under his bed. He takes it out and it's a Reclaiming Your Masculinity, like audio cassette tape thing.
Huh.
And so he starts playing it, and it's like a man talking, saying like, are you wearing something appropriately masculine? He's wearing like a plaid button-down shirt. Well, untuck it, only half of it. And like, oh, you hate this, don't you? And then it goes through like, say things like, yo, and hot damn. What fabulous window treatments. See, that was a trick. You shouldn't have said it. So this scene is actually very, very funny and would have held up if it had not been like, so clearly you're gay because of this. I took it when I was watching it as little baby Emily as like, yeah, there's not any one way to be a man. That scene, one of the things it says is like, one thing a man never does is dance. There is no rhythm, there's no grace, there is no pleasure. And it starts playing I Will Survive. And he has this like amazing, like joyful dance around the room. And it's just like, how is that about heterosexuality or homosexuality or masculinity or femininity? Like, that's a banger. If
Well,
you don't
also,
dance.
like Fred Astaire and
Mikhail Baryshnikov. I mean, like
Gene, what's his name?
Gene Kelly. Yeah.
Him, yeah.
Yeah.
Like, what? Okay.
I just recently learned that tango was originally created as a dance between two men because it was a situation where there weren't enough female partners.
Huh.
I'll include a link in the show notes. There is this hot video of two men doing the tango.
As an HAWT, hot.
Hot. Anyway.
So real men don't dance, but Kevin Kline's Howard dances to I Will Survive.
Yes. His students are freaking out a little bit, and not freaking out. They're cluelessly talking about it. And like, they're saying like, I think I figured out why he thinks you're gay. You're a decent human being. You're very clean and neat and tidy. Gay. And it's like, oy, oy, oy. And his principal basically tells him, if you don't get married, you're going to get fired. Because parents are worried. The principal says to him, like, do you enjoy teaching? And he says, no, I don't enjoy teaching. I love it. This is my life. And he says, well, you need to get married, basically. He's like, is that a threat? No, it's a warning. We're friends. Friends warn each other. It also had a line, Bob Newhart as the principal had a line that I thought was hilarious in 1997 and cringed watching it last night, where Howard says to him, do I look like a homosexual to you? And Bob Newhart says, I don't know, stand up and walk for me. What a horrible, like, ugh. And I had forgotten about that line, but seeing it, I was like, oh yeah, I remember that being funny.
I mean, honestly, there's no, just the question itself is cringeworthy.
Yes.
In 97, it wasn't.
In 97, it wasn't. And the context of where Howard is that he's being asked that, so the principal is saying to him, like, parents are calling because they're concerned that you're a and Howard goes, a homeroom teacher? He's like, and he finally gets the word out, homosexual. And like, it's forgivable the way that with the way that everyone is treating Howard. I did not feel uncomfortable with Howard responding in that way. Not that I think that's okay, but just because he is being pushed into this corner.
Yeah, sure. Okay.
So Howard's parents invite Peter Malloy to the wedding.
Why?
They run into them right after the kiss.
Oh, so they think they're friendly?
They think they're friendly. He's like, oh, any friend of Howard's, I hope you'll come to the wedding. And so at the wedding, Emily comes down the aisle. They take way too long. Does anyone know of any impediment? Because it's a movie. And then starts with, do you take this man to be your husband? To Emily, she says, I do. Turns to Howard, and he says, I'm gay. And then like turns around and comes out to the entire congregation at the church. Emily runs off. He runs after her. And this part I remember as very well, is like, I'm a horrible person. You must hate me. I insist that you hate me. I can't believe I've done this to you. Something that a commentator that I was reading talked about is the fact that she is not angry at him for being gay. She's angry at him for his timing, because she says to him, don't you think there could have been any point in time when you could have said this?
Yeah, sure.
Prior to now.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is another very funny moment that again is like, it relies on the stereotypes, but the timing is so good because Joan Cusack is so good. Like she runs, like they're in this little alcove, like changing room or something was where they're talking, and she runs out again, and the congregation is all still there, and she shouts, does anyone here know how many times I have had to watch Funny Girl? And then she drops the only F-bomb in the movie. She goes, fuck Barbra Streisand. And then runs off and drives away in the just married car with like the dress hanging out.
Uh-huh.
So like the physical comedy is hilarious. During this time, Cameron Drake, the Oscar-winning actor, learns about everything that's going on and is like, oh my God, I got to deal with this, and comes back to Greenleaf. Howard goes back to his house. His father shows up with some food that his mother sent and is like, he's like, I'm trying here, but are you going to have an operation? Are you going to be going into showbiz? And Howard's like, no, Dad, no. And his dad's like, look, I'm just a farmer. I don't know any of this. I really am trying. I'm really trying, Howard. And then Howard tells his father that he was fired right after the not wedding. He got a phone call. And his father says, well, graduation's on Monday. I really hope you'll be there. He's like, I don't work there anymore. He's like, you taught those kids all year. You should be at graduation. We see Emily show up at a bar, still full bridal regalia. Peter Malloy is there. It's not clear, but it sounds like he's been fired as well. They start talking. He's very kind to her. She is like really in and out of a good place. She's like, I love you. You're nice. Will you sleep with me? And he's like, I'm gay. And she's like, is everyone gay? The other line that she's like, it's been 3 years of sunsets and friendship and loving support. I am ready. This is a medical condition at this point. She runs out and is like, is there any heterosexual man? This is a heterosexual red alert. And is like in the middle of the road. And Cameron Drake almost runs her over. And he gets out. We had learned that she had been a student teacher the year that he was a senior. And that she had helped him, she'd done tutoring after school for him to help him with Romeo and Juliet. And they like quoted it back and forth at each other. And Howard was like, oh, goodness. And she's like, no, it was fine. You know, I was a student teacher. He was a student. I've actually looked it up. Joan Cusack is 2 years older than Matt Dillon. She would have been like a 20-year-old student teacher with an 18-year-old high school student. And so for a second, he doesn't recognize her. And then he's like, oh, Miss Montgomery? And he goes, what happened? And she goes, everything happened and because of you. And she's like, no, I don't mean that, but your body is so different. She's like, well, I've lost 75 pounds. And he's like, well, why would you do that? You were so beautiful. He's like, I mean, you still are. You're very beautiful. But it's clear that he had a crush on her even when she was much bigger. We see Howard's mom talking to several of the other old ladies, and they're like, you know, why is this a bad thing? Let's stop keeping secrets. And they all start sharing secrets and laughing. And then at the graduation, which also has the announcement of Teacher of the Year, a different teacher is announced as Teacher of the Year. Cameron Drake comes in and says, wasn't Mr. Brackett up for that? And everyone's freaking out because he's a movie star. And he's like, well, he's no longer employed here. And so, which is the first anyone has heard of that. And so there's some back and forth about how like members of the community are uncomfortable with this, that he might influence. And Cameron Drake is like asking the principal questions in order to like get him to admit like, yeah, we're afraid the gay is going to rub off on the kids. One student, and it is unclear if it was written that he was actually gay or if this is just an I am Spartacus moment, but he's like, well, I've been his student all year. It must have rubbed off on me because I'm gay. And so then the other 3 students who we've seen as like the closest to Howard also announce that they're gay. The principal's like, well, but it's about members of the community. So Howard's brother stands up and says, I'm a member of the community and I don't care. He's like, yes, but you're not a parent. And so Howard's parents stand up and say like, we're parents and we don't care. And so then everyone starts saying, you know what, but I'm gay too. And I'm gay. And so there's this huge I am Spartacus moment. And the teacher who won Teacher of the Year says, yes, but I'm still Teacher of the Year. And so Cameron Drake jumps up and says, well, he may not get that award, but I think there's another one that he deserves. And he gives the Oscar that he won to Howard. And the film ends with Howard's parents renewing their vows so that Howard's mom can have like the beauty and the music and the place cards and stuff. And it's this huge dance party where everyone is dancing to Macho Man. So when I'm talking about like things that haven't aged well, I like starting with what it gets right. So the thing that this film gets right is the idea of acceptance. Everyone in this small town loves Howard. They all really think he's the greatest guy ever. And the fact that he's gay doesn't change that. The only person for whom that changes things is the principal, and it's clear he's just a weasel.
So is the impression then that he's actually lying when he says the community doesn't want the gay to rub off on the kids?
It's unclear.
Yeah. Okay.
It's unclear to me. And, it's a very sitcom. Everything's wrapped up in a pretty bow. But I feel like the film did do something for the kind of Indiana viewers who were like Wilford Brimley's character going, are you going to have an operation now? Who were like, I don't know what any of this means.
Right.
Because it treated that with the ridicule that it deserved, but also made it clear that the dad was trying his best. He had no idea what the hell he was talking about. It doesn't affect how father or son feel about each other.
Yeah. There was gentleness to it.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a gentle ridicule. And that, I think they did really well. The other thing, this was something that really stuck in my head. So it's 2 boys and 2 girls who are like the core students who are like big fans of Howard's in his class. And so one of the boys is kind of a blowhard. They're in the locker room. Howard is the track coach, I think. They're in the locker room. They're talking about it. They're talking about like the blowhard is saying like there's 2 times where it's okay to be gay. One is in prison where it's a substitute and the other is in space. And like it's ridiculous. And he's like, well, that's the thing. Like, it's the human body. Human body has in holes and out holes. And so, gay men, they put things in the out holes. And so another kid asks, so a mouth's an in hole? It's like, yeah, you eat. But like when you vomit, it comes out the in hole, and that's wrong. And that's why. And like that felt familiar when I was 18 to the kind of bullshit that I hear from my guy friends.
Yeah.
And like I remember, and I thought it was in the movie, but I kind of appreciate that they let the audience do this itself. Because the kid asking like, so mouth's an in hole? The kid's obviously going like, not everything gay men do is wrong.
Right.
So like for a movie that is very like over the top and underlining the thesis,
yeah,
they let the audience be like, this kid's full of shit. So I thought that was something they did very nicely. Seeing Howard's comfort with himself after he comes out is really well done. Now, Kevin Kline's he's a phenomenally talented actor and hilarious. He's a very incredible comedian. So I felt like the way that he showed like this kind of like comfort in himself once he's come out was really well done. But I got to get to the thing that little baby Emily was confused by and adult Emily watching it last night was also like frustrated by. I could tell even as an 18-year-old that the movie wanted me to make assumptions about Howard's sexuality based on stereotypes. But for me, I'm watching this and a third party outs Howard. That's just wrong.
Mm-hmm.
Outs him to the world. And for me, it was just like, he hasn't seen this kid in, 15 years. Cameron Drake is shown to be not the brightest bulb.
Mm-hmm.
So like, it never occurred to me that he was right about something that Howard himself didn't know. Or, like, that just seemed like such a betrayal of boundaries. Not like it would be a betrayal of boundaries if Howard were gay and closeted and had actually had a conversation with Cameron about it. He's outing him to the entire world. That's not okay. But the fact that Howard is closeted to the point where he's getting married to a woman and someone else makes this assumption about him and feels like they have the right. I have trouble seeing Cameron as a sympathetic character because of that, even though they very much want him to be a sympathetic character. That's part of it. I thought, like the entire movie, until he says I'm gay, I thought it was a little bit more about how masculinity doesn't have to be any one thing.
Right. And actually, it just reifies the idea that
yes,
the fact that he's not hypermasculine, therefore he must be gay.
Yes. And I've been thinking about it. One of the things that Peter Malloy says is like, because Howard says, I love Emily. I don't want to hurt her. And Peter says, well, think about how much you'll hurt her if you go through with this wedding. So that again, like Peter assumes he knows who Howard is. But he does make a good point that, like, you know, if you do know this about yourself, don't do this to her.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't have any indication that Howard does know this about himself. Like, we don't have any indication whatsoever. And the assumption that other people know Howard better than he knows himself, I find that
offensive.
Yes. Now, on the other hand, he is not sexually interested in Emily. You know, 3 years engaged.
Yeah.
You know, and this is not someone who's just very conservative and like, because that would be like a 6-month engagement, you know?
Yeah.
One of the things, like this movie and Chasing Amy helped me crystallize something that I really like about myself, which I think is actually a feature of my neurodivergence, which is that I can mind my own business like a motherfucker.
Yeah.
Like, if it's not my business, I don't get involved. I don't think about it. I don't question it. It's not my business.
Yep. I'm the same way. I am the same way. I think maybe we were raised that way.
I think that's
that
part of it.
There are boundaries and they're boundaries. And it's not like, but you can tell me. I never say that. I never that kind of pure prurient like curiosity. Like, if I understand it's not my lane, it's not my lane.
And I've always really liked that about myself because I know, like, I'm not going to meddle in other people's business, and I'm not going to like gossip about other people. I like that about myself. This film has got me thinking there are limits to the benefits of minding my own business like a motherfucker. Because if you see a train wreck coming, like Peter does with the marriage between Emily and Howard, like, should you maybe try to stop the train wreck?
Right.
I don't know. But the other aspect of it is that I take people at their word unless and until I've been given reason not to.
Sure.
So, like, if someone has shown themselves to be untrustworthy, I don't take them at their word.
Right.
But Howard running around saying, like, I'm not gay. Like, it's not that I have a problem with gay. That's not who I am. Okay. I trust you know better than I do.
Right.
You know? And that's something I don't know how to, like, square that circle, because it's none of my business. I trust people know themselves better than I do. In this film, other people may know more than he does. Is that something that actually happens, or is that just the sitcom-y nature of this film?
Yeah. I mean, I think that, like, there's multiple things going on here. Like, on the one hand, I'm the same way. I take people at their word until I have reason not to. And that makes me very bad at politics. Like any kind of like office politics or any kind of group politics, I'm very bad at, because I take people at their word and like I don't get subtext, which doesn't always serve me. This is an even deeper layer than that, because the conceit of the film is that Howard is being honest. It's like an extra layer. And I think what I find offensive about the idea that other people know him better than he knows himself is that it's not his mom or his dad or Emily who are his like most intimate confidants and like people who like his inner circle. It's not them who are saying it. It's actually strangers or like 2 or 3 circles out. And based on these stereotypes, which as you say, like, I mean, because like based on those stereotypes, like I have short hair and I prefer to wear trousers and, you know, I drive a stick shift. I'm actually not a lesbian. I'm genuinely not. I don't want to sleep with women, but I do have short hair and drive a stick shift and prefer pants over skirts. Liking Barbra Streisand and dancing to I Will Survive doesn't make Howard gay. Wanting to sleep with men makes Howard gay. I think that's the piece that feels offensive in this film. Like, not even that someone might know something about me that I'm too close to see, and that you, as my sister and friend, might see it. Like, that's not offensive. Is through these like ridiculous stereotypes that really are about masculinity, not actually about homosexuality. I think that's what feels offensive and dated and off in what you've described. Yeah.
And to the movie's credit, final scene is everyone dancing to Macho Man, including Bob Newhart.
Mm.
Like, it takes him a little while to get into it. And, like, he's the most uptight. He's not the most, macho of the men in the town, but he's the most uptight.
And the casting, too, right? Like, Tom Selleck as the other kind of out gay man in the film. Like, Selleck is not limp-wristed, shrinking violet that I think the sort of non-masculine, like he's not an effeminate man. Selleck is not.
Yeah.
And so that kind of pushes back against this idea that things that are coded as not masculine that Howard likes are what makes him gay. And yet, like, it's a push me pull me thing. I think that also, if we look at how people are treated in the movie, the fact that the actor, the former student, like, really doesn't have any consequences. In fact, gets to come save the day from the mess that he himself made. Like, the movie itself does not provide consequences for him. And you say that you, as a viewer, have a hard time viewing him sympathetically, but obviously the movie does. And so I think that also pushes back against the idea that, like, someone, a relative stranger, could know something about me that I don't know because of these markers that are not actually related to the identity.
If they had given any for why Cameron knew that Howard was gay, because they never let us know how he knew, other than other people's assumptions about how he knew. It just, there is something to, like, the kind of social pressure, thankfully, I think is mostly a thing of the past that Howard was under, in terms of, like, his parents, like, we need to have this wedding, and his job making it clear that he needs to be straight to continue teaching. And the fact that he is teaching and living in the same small town that he has spent his entire life in. I think they got that kind of right. But what's interesting, so I read several commentators last night. One was saying that they prefer this movie to The Birdcage, which came out, I believe, the same year. And for a couple of reasons. One is that the end of the film does not have, like, there's a suggestion that Peter and Howard are together, but it's not clear. And it's clear that he is happy and content in himself without necessarily having to be paired up, because his support system is around him, who loves him, like his students, his family, his neighbors, his, all of that. I appreciated that. And it's this small town in Indiana. So this, like, kind of conservative town has rallied around this man. Whereas the end of The Birdcage, there is a clear demarcation between the senator's side of the aisle at the wedding and the Birdcage side of the aisle.
Also, just in The Birdcage in general, like, it's the opposite. Like, it's the closest, like, the son is the one kind of forcing the dad back into the closet.
Yes.
Where in and out, what you've just described, like, there are definitely forces that are trying to keep Howard in the closet, but they're not his family. His family is, I mean, they want the wedding, but only because they want the pageantry, right? Not because they need him to be straight in some way or to impress people in some way. Like, The Birdcage, Armand's son, Val, is the villain in my mind in that movie. And it sounds like the villain is actually the boss saying, if you're gay, you're fired.
Yeah.
Which is more, it's not okay. But it doesn't break my heart in the way that Armand's son saying it breaks my heart.
Yes. The other thing that this commentator had to say was the kiss was a big deal. In The Birdcage, you don't see much, if any, physical affection between
they sit
Armand
close. That's about it. They sit close.
And some of that's because they're an old married couple. You know, they've been together for 20 years or however long.
Yeah, I do think that Robin Williams and Nathan Lane sold their connection in that movie, but it was decidedly non-sexual in terms of what we saw on screen, as opposed to, like, a full-on 12-second, like, real kiss between Tom Selleck and Kevin Kline. I hear that.
But it was a non-consensual kiss.
Yeah.
Which, and I'd like to believe that in 1997, we would not have accepted a male lead saying to a female lead, you know what you need, and then grabbing her and kissing her.
Oh, no, we would have accepted that. I think we would still accept that as a people. I think we really would if we wanted them together.
Yeah.
Like, if we're shipping them, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think we would still accept that if we're shipping them.
Yeah.
Like, if we know that she doesn't want it, or that she's not interested, or that he's yucky or for something, like, then we won't. But if we like them together, like as a group, as groupthink, like them together, we would absolutely, we'd be like, yay, clap, clap, clap. In part because we've been trained to.
Yeah.
That's how it happens. It's not cool to ask permission. That to me, that's really like the challenge that I want to place to Hollywood. Like, Hollywood, help us see how sexy it can be. Please.
I mean, consent is sexy.
Please help us see how sexy consent can be.
I know.
Give us models. We don't have models. Not really.
Yeah. There's my favorite model for the sexiness of consent is Will Ferrell in Stranger Than Fiction. He goes to Maggie Gyllenhaal and he says, and he's not supposed to because he's auditing her. He's an IRS auditor. He goes to her and says, I want you. And she's like, okay. And she's like, and I'm like, well, I needed you to know that. And then just leaves it for her to decide what to do from there.
Nice.
So anyway, I like that is, that's, I really wish that weren't how it went down, because the kiss itself played for laughs, but also kind of hot. It's well done, and it doesn't shy away from like it's played for the laughs in the way that any kiss would be played for laughs. That like it surprises Howard how much he likes it. The other aspect of it, and again, this is 1997, so I know that this is not something that the world was even talking about. I don't think I knew the term, but it's entirely possible that Howard is asexual, and it's not that he's gay. And so, there's this kind of like gay, straight, binary. Yeah,
totally.
And again, to the film's credit, they do make it clear that he is bad for Emily.
Yeah.
They do care deeply about each other. But at one point, he's like, I have this, beautiful, wonderful fiance, and she's so sweet and funny and lovely and thin. And like, it's made like minorly clear that she lost the weight
for him. And then we have the actor say, you were beautiful before.
Yes.
Yeah.
And at the end, when when everyone's dancing, she has a bag of cheese curls, and Cameron is feeding them to her. So she says something about like, my entire self-esteem is tied up in the fact that you wanted me.
She says that to Howard?
She says that to Howard. So like, as much as I find Cameron sympathetic, like I am glad at the end that there's someone with whom she had a connection, like inappropriate, but still like, it's 15 years before. And at one point, like they dance, like when he runs into her, there's a song starts playing in the bar behind them. And he starts to take her to dance. She's like, I can't, you're my student. And he's like, not anymore. I appreciate that there is that. And that she has someone who has even bigger cachet than Howard Brackett.
Right.
Who appreciates her for her.
Right.
But
yeah. Well, we are running short on time. Are there any points that you wanted to make that you haven't made?
Film passes the Bechdel test very well. So Emily talks to many people. Howard's mother talks to many people. There's the scene where all the women are sharing secrets. There's one other thing. So the secrets, the first one is like the Rice Krispie treats that I made for the wedding. They're not mine. They're a dead woman's recipe. I stole the recipe from so-and-so when she died. And then someone else, I don't remember, like they didn't like some famous show or movie. And then one other woman, and by the way, the woman who played the librarian at the beginning of Ghostbusters is one of the women in this scene. And I was sitting there going like, how do I know her? Her face is so familiar.
Thought he was Saint Jerome.
But one woman says, my husband has 3 testicles. It's disgusting. And that's what gets everyone laughing. And I remember thinking that was funny when I was 18, but seeing it now, I was just like, that's not your secret to share. That's the sort of thing where like, I can definitely understand a woman needing to share that with their girlfriends. But the way that they laugh about it and all of that is just like, oh, It's the same problem that Cameron did. Like, he's sharing something to people that's not his secret to share. Yeah.
Presumably the husband knows he has 3 testicles, though.
Yes. Yeah, he knows. But now he has to, like, if he sees his wife's friends, he's going to be like, why are they titter? Oh, God, they know.
Let me see if I can reflect back some of the highlights and maybe put my stank on it a little bit. So this film, I think the things that are really rising to the surface from the analysis for me is really like a critique of late 90s, although I think it definitely has tendrils that are still active today. But specifically from this time capsule from the late 90s, this kind of conflation of gender expression, specifically masculinity and sexuality, as if the only way to be sort of a real man, and I'm putting quotes around that, is to have kind of hyper masculine characteristics and interests and likes, and to also be heterosexual. That constellation is necessary. And if any one of those things is not true, then all of them are not true, right? So the audio cassette that Howard listens to that's trying to help him like reclaim his masculinity, that you can't say the window treatments are fabulous. You're not a real man if you say that, and therefore you are also gay. Like those all things, it's like one domino and the whole thing just falls down. And that kind of like strict binary is false and hurtful. It harms us. It harms people. And it's very dangerous. And I think it's very much baked into this. The movie in some ways is trying to push back against it, but then doesn't, because Howard is in fact gay, and other people, namely the former student, now actor, know. And so there's like this push me, pull me, which we see so often with late 90s movies, where like on the one hand, it's about acceptance, and God bless these Indiana townies and Howard's family who really rally around him. Like, it doesn't matter. We love him. We know who he is. It doesn't matter if he's gay or not. And on the other hand, like there's like a cosmological reality that it's tapping into about what it means to be a man. We also had like a little bit of a conversation about consent. And I think you were starting to suggest that if it were a heterosexual couple today, we would push back against the lack of consent in the kiss that happens between the Tom Selleck character and the Kevin Kline character. And I think you were starting to say that perhaps we accept it because it was 2 men and it was like the kind of the novelty of it. I disagree. I actually think we still have a major problem with consent if we are also meant to be kind of excitedly anticipating the romance between 2 people. Shipping. If we are shipping 2 characters, then we somehow don't care about consent, like as a culture, which is a problem. The guy girls name that as a major problem in the culture. There are things that were very funny in the 90s that don't hold up because of our better understanding and greater acceptance of what it means to be gay in this culture. Or I should say queer and like expand that, like not just gay as in homosexual, but queer as in not kind of cis, straight, and allosexual, meaning not asexual. It does pass Bechdel, which is cool. Joan Cusack is very funny with her physical comedy.
She was nominated for an Oscar for this film.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
Which the things that I was reading about it was saying, like, that just kind of shows you how slim the pickings were in 97. Yeah. Not that she didn't do a fantastic job, but.
Well, those were the big things that I heard. Did I miss anything?
What this means to me.
Right.
About my inability to read subtext and how that was an early indicator that I was neurodivergent.
Right. The other thing that I missed was like when we put this movie in conversation with other movies, right? So Chasing Amy for you around subtext and around taking people at their word, especially about something about their identity, which both of these films suggest we can't do. And also in conversation with The Birdcage, which there are things about The Birdcage that are really beautiful that we see like real love the most healthy romantic relationship in The Birdcage is between the Nathan Lane and Robin Williams characters, but also the person asking them to go back in the closet is their son. And that's really messed up. As opposed to this film where the person asking him to stay in the closet is his boss, which isn't okay, but at least it's not like an intimate.
It's not a betrayal.
It's not a betrayal, right?
Yeah.
The other thing that we talked about, I think, a little bit is sort of about minding our own business and sort of taking people at their word, the pros and cons in that, the assets and liabilities of doing that.
Trying to navigate like how much of it is your business if you see someone about to make a huge mistake that's going to hurt other people.
Right.
Which I still don't have an answer for.
Right. Well, and also sort of like the politicking gets very, very difficult. And also like we talked a bit about the idea that someone could know something about me that I don't know about me, and who can know that? Like that someone from a distance could know that. And the suggestion, again, this comes back to the cosmological, like the essentialist argument that this film seems to be making about homosexuality and masculinity together that feels offensive.
I will say, to be fair, Cameron Drake is not malicious.
No, sure. I don't think anybody's malicious.
No.
And the movie makers aren't either. I just have a fundamental disagreement with them about the essentialist nature of it, that they are suggesting that the masculinity necessarily goes with the homosexuality, which they also counter with the casting of Tom Selleck, but still seem to be kind of reifying with the action of the film. So, yeah. Cool. I don't think I need to rewatch this one if I even ever saw it. But next week, actually, my family is going to visit Hawaii to celebrate a big life cycle event that we had. And so for next week, I am going to rewatch Lilo and Stitch, which is the film that introduced me to Hawaiian culture. So I want to take a closer look at that and see like what it got right and what it didn't. And we'll see how that goes. So I'm kind of excited about that. I know people younger than me, Moana, like introduced them to sort of Pacific Islander. But for me, it was Lilo and Stitch.
Looking forward to it.
This show is a labor of love, but that doesn't make it free to produce. If you enjoy it even half as much as we do, please consider helping to keep us overthinking. You can support us at our Patreon. There's a link in the show notes. Or leave a positive review so others can find us. And of course, share the show with your people. Thanks for listening. Our theme music is Professor Umlaut by Kevin MacLeod from Incompetech.com. Find full music credits in the show notes.
Thank you to Resonate Recordings for editing today's episode.
Until next time, remember, pop culture is still culture. And shouldn't you know what's in your head?